Joining me now in the studio are Tom Scott and Jack Badu from the charity Football Beyond Borders. Hello there, gents.
Hi.
Hello. Good evening. Thanks for joining me. Now, let's talk about this wonderful managerial merry-go-round that sees so many big names and not that many clubs. This is exciting right now, isn't it? This is sort of the best time of the closed season when anything could happen and there's so much possibility. I suppose we should start with Rafa Benitez, as he's the big link to Real Madrid today. He's going there, isn't he? He's not going to say no to them, surely.
I doubt he would. I mean, it's a great job to take. It's a lot of pressure. You know, you look at Ancelotti, the record that he had there, went on a run of about 20 straight wins.
21, in fact.
21 straight wins. I mean, they broke a lot of records. Fantastic team, only pipped to the post by, you know, a surreal Barcelona team. He's got to take the job, really, but Liverpool may be a bigger pull for him. I know they've still got a big place in their hearts from down in Merseyside.
And he still has family in Liverpool. He still has a home there. I mean, surely if it was an arm wrestle between Liverpool and Real Madrid, I mean, it would be Real Madrid, right?
I mean, you've got to choose Liverpool if you want the security of the job. You know, it's a difficult club to go to. You've got some big characters to deal with. You know, if he does go there and he can't embed his tactics straight away, he won't be there for longer than 6 months. You know, somewhere like Liverpool, the fans are already behind him slightly already. So, I mean, if I was the man, I'd go for Liverpool. You've got much more of a chance of having a greater impact. But obviously, it's Real Madrid. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world. So,
and of course, we shouldn't forget that Liverpool still actually have a manager
that
hasn't been dismissed at this point. Let's think about some of these other big names that are kicking around now. Jurgen Klopp, Carlo Ancelotti, Michael Laudrup. I mean, these are big, talented, clever, creative managers. And as far as I can tell, you've got basically Napoli, Newcastle United and West Ham as your clubs that you go to, and Roberto Di Matteo. Who could go where? Where would you be putting certain managers if it was your pick?
I mean, I would say someone like Di Matteo has got to come to the Premiership. You know, he's done well already. He's done fantastic at Chelsea, you know, for the fact that he's gone to Schalke and not really enjoyed his time there. To go from Chelsea to West Ham, I think it would be a very, very difficult club to go to.
Yeah.
So definitely could see him at Newcastle, although it's not the biggest club. So potentially there's the chance of Dortmund as well. But I'd say I'd love to see Klopp in the Premier League. Absolutely love. But he did say he's going to take a year out, so whether the chance is still going to be there, who knows?
Was that a sort of subtle suggestion that Klopp could go to Newcastle United? I'm a huge Newcastle fan, so that would be music to my ears.
They are a huge club, you know, and someone like Klopp, he'd actually have time to embed his tactics again, and, you know, build up from maybe, say, the youth setup, the reserves, and, you know, bring in the talent from the local area, you know, actually build a club around him with his own philosophy. If he was to go to a bigger club, he'd find it a lot more difficult. So, you know, it all depends on what the manager sees fit and, you know, where they see themselves going, I guess.
I'm a big fan of what these men could bring to my club. I'm very excited about it. Let's talk a little bit about what happens to the players in the closed season. We know that Manchester United are going on a tour of states. We've mentioned that obviously Spurs have not even had a closed season. They've just carried their season on. What's the importance, from a player's perspective, of that important word rest? How much value do you put on it?
I think it's a very underrated thing, especially in England. You know, if you look at the effect for Germany in the last World Cup particularly, they take a winter break, and the effect it had on their team, you could see they were rejuvenated. They just had a lot more energy. You take someone like Rooney, for example, who's meant to be the pinnacle of the England attack. He just looks knackered at every international tournament, and that is partly down to the fact that they just get played so much in the Premier League. You've got to account for all the cup games, the European games, and then it's just basically straight into an international tournament. And without that rest, it does have a massive effect on the national team. And I think there are a lot of players who could really benefit from having a decent bit of rest.
I mean, we know that Harry Kane, for example, has played 53 times during this season, and yet he's going to still go off on an international. Is that too much?
I think the difference is when you're a young player who has, you know, not played the same amount of games as someone like Wayne Rooney, he can sort of get away with it at the early stages of his career. You know, maybe a few years down the line he won't be able to do this, but someone like Harry Kane, you know, he needs to be playing in the top tournaments. He needs that experience of playing these big matches. You know, once it comes to, you know, potentially the next World Cup or the next European Championships for the national team, we'll be quite glad that he's gone away and, you know, spent this time homing on his game and getting these goals. Potentially other players for Tottenham, they may struggle when coming back into the league. But Harry Kane, I'm a big fan of him, even though I'm not a big fan of Tottenham.
I hear it, smashing. It sounds like it's a balancing act with the resting. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. More to come from you in the second half. Well, joining us again are Tom Scott and Jack Badu from the charity Football Beyond Borders. Welcome back, lads. Simply, Football Beyond Borders. Tell me all about it.
So, Football Beyond Borders is a charity or an organisation that really believes in youth as the future, and we basically try and use the power of football to educate kids and help them achieve their goals, especially underprivileged kids who maybe wouldn't have access to the kind of education that other children may have.
Sorry, by education, what do you mean? Are you talking about GCSEs, exams, all that kind of thing, or do you mean a footballing education?
Well, it's both, really. I mean, we try and incorporate education in a more traditional sense, what you'd get at school, a little bit of that as well. So before like a training session, we'd help them look at sort of healthy ways to live and eat and stuff like that. In another way, we look at the beneficially ways that football can teach kids about teamwork, bravery, togetherness, all those kind of aspects that make you a better person. Fantastic.
I mean, without sort of sounding too naive, how do you source these underprivileged children? I mean, where do you find them?
I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people that like football, it's an easy avenue in. So, you know, go to a kid and say, do you like football? They'd say yes. You know, you'd say, do you like maths? They'd say no. Then we'd say, okay, can you tell me if you won X amount of games and you had X amount of results, what would that equal? That's a maths session. You talk about maybe Zinedine Zidane clip and can you commentate over it using similes and metaphors? That's an English lesson. So what you've got to sort of do is kind of trick them into learning a little bit, and then the added reward is you'll be able to go and watch an FA Cup final, or we'll go outside and play some football afterwards. So it's using football as a hook to sort of entice them into education.
It's the bait.
It is.
I love it. You learn with me and you'll be rewarded with football.
That's it.
What a fabulous situation. I sort of come back to that. I don't mean this to sound dumb, but you know, how do you find the children that need help? Do you go into schools? Do you sort of speak to local councils and authorities? How does this work? Because you can't just walk up to a kid on the street, can you? Because that's frightening stuff.
I mean, potentially you could, but we're currently in 6 schools at the moment. 4 in London and 2 in the West Midlands. We'll approach the schools directly. We'll show them exactly what our plan is for the school, and every single time they've absolutely loved it. You know, some of our data that we've got with attendance, general just understanding of the programme and their ability to then represent themselves as great individuals through the programme is fantastic, you know. And you know, some of these young people, they often are in quite difficult situations, and you know, using football as a way of getting them to think about life slightly differently and to engage themselves in learning, it's a fantastic thing to do.
I think it sounds brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it sounds very life-affirming as well. You sound like you're doing really good things. 2 quick questions for you, because we don't have a lot of time. How did you get started, and how can people learn more about you?
Well, me, I've been involved since the start of last year. The guy who runs the foundation, who set it up, a really nice guy called Jasper, who's a really good friend now, he asked me to get involved, to volunteer, and I just tried to use whatever skills I have. So I've got quite a lot of experience in analysing football. I'm also involved in the video production side. So I just tried to get involved wherever I could and built it up from there, really.
Brilliant.
And, yeah, just do whatever you can to help out.
And the crucial question, how can we learn more about you guys? Because we don't have long enough today, so tell me, how can we find more information?
So, yeah, we've got a website, which is www.footballbeyondborders.org. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. Always looking for volunteers local to London and West Midlands.
Brilliant.
Anybody that has an interest in media or football or education.
Smashing.
Find us there.
Got to stop you there, but thank you very much. Footballbeyondborders.org. Love it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.